Okay, everyone. Hey, so just got back from my walk, and a lot of good things have happened. They've all mainly been good things. I just realized that I'm just kind of going through a lot of emotions. So, what is it? So at work, I'm just gonna go and dump the way I'm feeling. So at work, my the owners, my bosses. So there's two bosses, right? And one of them, so they introduced this new pay scale, right? And I saw it, I was able to read it and understand it. And when they were doing it, one of the biggest things they've always said is like poke holes, like what you think in the pay scale. And one of the biggest things I saw was that at a point, the pay scale, like, it's not necessarily that it wouldn't pay necessarily. Um, but I realized it just worked off of two things. It worked off of punishing those who couldn't get to a certain threshold. And I thought, and what I was trying to say, and like in showing them that, or just as I was trying to wrap my head around it, was that like if someone was going to do this, right? Um, they could like the problem with this pay scale that I saw was that you can go from making a lot of money to making very little money by just like a fraction of an inch. It's like the Western Conference playoffs right now if you watch the NBA, like there's two games the difference between the third seed and like the eighth seed. It's like super punishing, right? And I just thought like if you're going to pay people off of that, like it should be more proportional to the work they're doing because like what's going to happen, let's say someone gets it once, right? They're going to do that because they put in all this work. But then they might be able to do that much work, the same amount of work that same week if it's just on a threshold, and it might not work. So it's going to fall back and it's going to punish them really, really hard. And that most people, right? And that's one thing I'm scared of. Like I looked at it myself, and I'll be frank, like that's really, really tough, right? Because there's this huge thing. And then I said another thing though is I'm like, once you get to this point, right, it doesn't motivate anybody else to work. But the thing is, once you can get to this point of work really, really, really steadily, right, there's no reason to push past that. Like zero, absolutely none. And so I realized like it's a tough coasting point, and like maybe as a person like getting up to that point and being able to coast there, it's fine. And the company's fine paying for it, and they're like it's a theory or whatever. But I'm like for most people like working up and getting to this point, and maybe that's it. Like you get to this point where you work, you work, you work, and then you coast, right? And I think for me like I guess it would be all right like to collect a paycheck like that. But like the problem is that as you work and you kind of go and you get to that level of the system, like I was just pointing out holes in it. Like I was literally just showing like my observations of it and doing some numbers and saying like, hey, like if someone was going to do this system, right? And some people, because they were transitioning between the two, I was saying you need to look at what you're able to do and what you're capable of. And the thing is, a lot of people aren't working at this. And the thing is, what was tough is that like so many of those like the system, the tough thing about me, and it's tough, is that the system, like the thing they had built, worked for me. Like people with my skill set who have done the things I've done could do that. I'm like I could do that, right? But here's the problem with this, right? Is that if you want to get other people to do that, like it's so the amount of work you have to do to get up to that point is so disproportionate to the reward. You know what I mean? Like it's like a huge. And the thing is they're saying like, well, okay, most people don't think like you. I'm like, but that's exactly the point. Like I can understand the large amount of work and the payoff at the end, right? Because I can get there and I can recognize it, right? But a lot of people, like if they're not getting a lot of pay or like motivated at the beginning and it's just kind of like this marginal increase, like it's so tough. And that's the tough thing is it's like the system, the way they built it up, it like it didn't reward, but like the only like for work, right? You either had to be really really crappy at your work and do minimal. So if you did minimal, like their minimum standards, which isn't great performance, frankly, right? And that's one thing. It can get you a solid paycheck, and that's one thing I recognize. Like there are people who can go there and get like 500, $700 for like a part-time job, and that's good, and that rewards them, right? Or it can get you something like huge, like just crazy, stupid amounts of money. Like I'm like we're talking like $9,000 a month, crazy stupid for work like I've done. Like I'm like, man, like if you can just do that consistently, like day in day out, like that's a lot of money, right? But the problem is like that no man's land in between is punishing. And so for people who haven't developed the skill set, or like who are trying to learn to develop the skill set through that to push from this end to this end, it's so punishing. Because if you slip up even once, you go all the way back to here. You're getting paid like you're sucking over here. But in reality, you're performing like this. And that's the thing, is it's not until you get to this point. It's like a isotope. You know what I mean? Like if it doesn't hit, I don't know if anyone knows what an isotope is, but an isotope needs so much energy to hit an electron. It needs hit a certain frequency, and if it doesn't hit that frequency, it'll just drop down to the next level of electron or atom of what it vibrates. So you have to it has to have so much vibrational energy, and once it hits there, then it can maintain that, and then you get your isotope. But if it says even one, if it's even one vibration, I can't think of it. If it's even one frequency off, it'll fall down all the way, right? And that's the way this system works. And it's fine. And I realize maybe they did it because they feel like people are either going to be here at the minimum and the bottom, and they're just going to stay at the bottom, which at the bottom, it's a lot of work. But compared to other jobs, it's still like, okay, you're getting paid pretty decent, frankly, right? You're getting paid like, what is it? I'm doing the math here. You'd get paid like something like $1,200, right? For like basically part-time job work if you're solid, right? And being solid is not that hard. Like if you're solid at this job, getting paid $2,400 a month isn't bad, right? But if you want to make the big bucks, like the real big bucks, like $9,000 a month, which you can on this, the amount of work, like to do that, it's just this huge spike in work, and then it goes down suddenly. Like, so there's diminishing marginal return on the work of the person through that. But then even on the company, I realize, because at this point, if you can get to this point steadily, right? They're paying a lot more. They're paying you a lot more than everybody else. But I mean, they're getting so much out of it. But they'd be doing well either way. But just their margins wouldn't be as good as, say, like if they were in the middle over here. Or it's not proportional margins all the way through. Basically what I'm saying, right? And maybe that's the point, is that you do want to hit that point where it start diminishing. But the problem is there's another tier above that, and that's just impossible. Like, remember that curve, like that jump from here to here, how that's really hard? There's another tier, and that one's just it's so much more work. It's like you have to put in twice as much work to get maybe like a third more. You know what I mean? So, and I guess it's like nature. Like it's a scale that reflects nature, The amount of energy to go from, 95 to get out of language, the amount of effort and focus it takes to get from 95% efficiency to 100% efficiency is the amount of work it takes to get from 0 to 80. You know what I mean? And so there is that steep exponential curve, and I recognize that. Anyway, so I was expressing these thoughts, and my bosses weren't having it. And just some people on the company, they weren't having it, because they're like, you're explaining all this stuff and all this theory, and you're complicating things. And they straight up were like, you have no moral rights to say anything to anyone. And I'll be honest, that really pissed me off. I was so freaking mad because one of the biggest reasons is that I really want to do position of leadership and things like that. And I don't know, like one thing I really get sick and tired of is like I feel like too many people make decisions thinking that others can't handle the information. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to make this person and allow them to make a decision, but I'm not going to tell them the implications of everything they're deciding. And for me, that's principally, it's not something that I've ever done by because, and maybe that's the analyst, like a part of me is the analyst, is that, but I want to make a decision knowing I understand all the factors. Like, it's like when you sign a contract and the person's like, we signed the contract, but you don't recognize all the implications of that. And they knew you didn't. They knew you didn't understand it, but they're like, well, this is how it is. And that's maybe part of leadership. Like, I guess it's how you raise children, you know? You're helping them make good decisions when they don't understand all the implications of it. So long as there's positive consequences, it's working to their favor, which I think it can. But the problem is like, if someone doesn't recognize, I think, like, if you're going to have someone commit to a decision and they might not understand all the consequences, then I think the burden of supporting that person and putting them through it is on you. And I guess that's where I'm at, and principally, and I just don't know, like, if they're able to support them. And they say, like, oh, we're able to support them, we're willing to support them in the decision. I'm like, are you really? Like, are you guys really helping them be successful? Because if you're giving them this system and they don't fully understand what it is they're choosing, they're going to do this, you know, a couple times. And the thing, yeah, you're trying to push volume and motivate them and things like that, but you're trying to do it the wrong way. You're trying to make a better cake. Like, sometimes it's not the recipe, it's the ingredients, right? And that's the thing, is you can have the best recipe in the world, but if you don't have the right ingredients, you're still gonna get like a pretty subpar cake. You know what I mean? And you know, the reverse is true. If you have a really, really awesome ingredients, but you have subpar recipe, you're gonna have whatever cake. So you need to have both, right? And I think sometimes though they spend so much time things on like policy and the recipe, like they spend so much time on trying to make the right recipe, but the problem is like still going to get like a pretty subpar cake. And I get that things need to be built in foundation. And, you know, that's one of my bosses, she called me out on it. And she was right. As much as I have to admit it. I kind of, you know, she's right. She just was. And so, like, you know, and I can own that. Like, I can own that. I can own that. But I'm just saying, like, if you want people to get to, like, a certain level, like, okay, get them here to this minimum first. And you can get enough people to this minimum first. But the idea, I mean, and this has been the problem my whole life, is that I've always been faster. And that sounds really cocky. It's not. But I've always just learned things and understood things faster than all the other kids, right? And so, and the problem is like, I've always felt like I've never been in a place that supported that, right? Where I was trying to do this and understand this. And I always had things like, oh, don't try and do that. You know, you need to slow down. And my whole life, I've tried to build and understand systems or create something that allowed me and supported this acceleration in myself. And I've always been in systems, especially where I grew up. Like, just a lot of the people here just like think really middle road, like a lot of the people. And I get it, you know, maybe it isn't a capacity thing. I don't understand. And, you know, but I guess I've always been able to do this, you know, make this jump because I have this abilities. And I'm like, well, why don't you teach people how to make this leap? But the problem is I feel like so many people, and I think like you're not going to try and get here unless you're trying to get there. Like, I don't think you end up someplace by accident. And, you know, maybe you can build the foundation and they just think people naturally come there, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think habit comes that way. I don't think excellence comes that way. Excellence comes through habit, but like there's a point where like you just do things not because you're told, which is why a lot of people do things, but like you're never going to truly achieve and be this self-directed thing unless you want to. And that's the problem, is the nature of our job requires you to be so self-directed that if it's just, if you're trying to dole it out like every other job, here's your task, do this, think like this, act this policy out, you're going to get a bunch of people who think like that. But the problem is they're not receiving like not even 1/10 the amount of support someone at a job like McDonald's or Subway is, because the frank, like, we go out and we knock doors. Like, that's the nature of the business, is that the nature of it is that as much as you want to support them over radio and stuff like that, the nature of the business is that, 90% of the time that person's on their own, right? And so unless you teach someone how to operate and manage themselves on their own, create goals on their own, and manage themselves on their own, they're never going to excel. They're never going to do well because you're not giving them the infrastructure to succeed. And it's like they don't see that. And I don't recognize why. And they're like trying to do it like a traditional company. It's like, right, a traditional company, but you don't like have, like, you're trying to create really like miniature entrepreneurs, people who are going to be motivated to go out, right? And like you're not giving them nearly as much support as they need. It's just like, I don't know, like Mormon missionaries, when they go out and they have to be motivated and stuff, and they have so much support, so many systems, way more than any company can ever hope to give, and they still struggle, and they don't even have to sell anything. They're just talking about their religion. Like, honestly, compared to selling something, like, it's way easier to talk about something you kind of sort of maybe believe than like try and get someone to invest and buy money into it in a lot of ways, right? And so I don't know. That's my thoughts on it, but I'm not saying they're wrong because it's their company. If I think I'm so right, I need to run a company and figure that out, and I don't know how to do that, obviously. That's why I'm making these videos, and D.A.R.M.A's doing however it's doing. So, so I'm not going to act like I know everything. I feel like I know that, and I know what it takes to excel at this, and I think that's, at my job, kind of I'm at this point now where, like, just become so valuable that they either have to listen to me or that when I'm gone, they feel it. Like, that's really, like, all I can do now, right? And so, like, I set this goal, and I don't know if it's animosity or not, but, like, the goal is, like, so basically everyone but me. And so I want everyone to do well and things like that. But, so he basically barred me from helping anyone. He says, like, if there's anyone who asks you for advice, anyone that wants to watch you work, I want you to send them to me. You're not allowed to talk or speak or do anything like that for someone. I saved it, and I have the text, and I saved it, right? I'm gonna look at that text every time. And my goal is, and I think I can do this because I got some ideas up here, right? It's gonna take a lot of work though, and so I got to be willing to just go all out. But like my goal is I want to beat the entire team. Like my goal is to be at least like more than half the production. So like they're getting schedules. A lot of people are filling out the schedules. So they're going to have like 7, there was like 9 other people there, right? And I think, and maybe this is really arrogant of me, but I think I can probably beat those 9. Like altogether, that's a lot. Like that, it's a lot. But I know that like the secret is being able to do it consistently, right? That's the secret. That's going to be because the thing is that 9, they're going to have people who go up and who swell and who go and who back and forth. But my goal is to be able to consistently stay at the top. And that's the secret. If I can consistently stay at the top, right, over time, if I can keep hitting these certain numbers, right, and there's a specific number threshold that I have to get. Once I can hit to that point, basically, unless all of them are getting to this pretty excellent point, they'd all have to get to a point that where, like, the second best, like, the guy who's doing really well right now, I think he's hit that point maybe twice, right? And he's, like, and he's the best rep by far because he just works like crazy. He just doesn't know how to not work. He's amazing. He's incredible, right? But he just works a lot, but he's not even close to as efficient as I am. Not even close, right? And so the idea is if I can just be really efficient. And I gotta learn, take some tools out of this guy's shed, because man, this guy just does not stop working, right? And I'm like, man, if I can figure out how to work even like 70 or 80% as consistently as this guy, dude, with my efficiency, man, I'm like gonna freaking kill it. So that's my thing right now, is I gotta learn to be like this uber consistent, because that's the thing, this scale, once you get to this point and you can get the momentum, and after a couple weeks of that, man, you can coast. And my goal is to try and get there before August, because then after, between August and September and January, like I'm gonna be pretty busy. Um, but my goal is, I'm gonna teach, while I'm doing this, is I'm gonna teach myself how to build this machine, right? And what's crazy is, like, once I figure out how to build this machine, right, I'm going to record it. I'm gonna document it, right? I'm gonna thinking I'm probably gonna make some training videos. Once I can make these training videos, then, right, when they feel the gap, when they feel the void of power, right, I'll give them something to kind of help them out, because I don't know if I'm ever going to want to work that hard. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to want to work that hard, but I'm ambitious, and, like, I can't stay still, so. But once I can fine-tune the machine and figure out how to do it, I think that's going to be the real challenge, is, like, going in after August, because I don't know what I'm going to be doing after August. But once I can figure out how to create the machine, right, like what it is that's helping my success, record it, watch it, build it, understand all its moving parts, and like build like a really solid training video for like door knockers, man, I could probably sell that. And once I can sell it, I'm thinking that it's going to be some good times. Anyway, I could talk forever, but that's the goal, right? Get to that point. And that's, my big globular dream. But the thing right now is, like, I just need to figure out how to get 10 people. I need to figure out how to get 11 people. 11 to 14. Well, the goal is I need to figure out how to get 13 people to sit down and want to hear about solar every single week. And that's the goal right now, is how do I get 13 families, 13 households in this area to sit down and listen to a pitch about solar every single week. I have to figure out the right things to say, the systems to put in place. And this is not even door knocking. This is understanding how to charge cancels, how to appointment setting, psychology. Like, there's all this stuff, how to manage it. And I got to figure out how to get it to 13. 13 gives me enough wiggle room with that. So if I can figure out how to do 13 consistently, and then the idea is then with this, I just need to like figure out output, and then it's like, okay, once you can make this machine, if you want to get that 13 to like 15, then it's like, okay, just put more juice in, right? But it's not trying to figure out more systems and stuff. So I got to figure out how to make this system as efficient as possible, and then, cut it down. So I basically, this next week, I just got to figure out 13, like just do tons of work, do 13, and figure out a way to get 13 sits in a week. And then after I do that 13 sits in a week, do it again, but then cut out all the unnecessary garbage and just keep refining it. And that's the idea. And that's, I'll be honest, I'm pretty terrified of that. So this next week, I told myself, is I'm just going to get 10. Not just get 10, because I got, 6 these last 2 weeks. It was like more like a week and a half. It was like 6 days. It was like 8 days of work, but I had one fallout, like one day where I just didn't do anything. Well, I went out, but I just failed. Just failed hard. So, I mean, I can do that. And granted, I was back at it. And, I mean, I was making a lot of mistakes I don't normally make. So, I think things will get better. But, yeah, I've got to figure out how to basically get 13 in a week. So it's got to be like 10. So these next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to work my ass off. Well, not the next 2 or 3 weeks. Honestly, probably the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be working my ass off. Well, I'm going to be working my ass off the whole time, frankly. But, I mean, just not going to be easy. And I'm kind of scared, honestly. I can feel it right here. I'm scared. Anyway, I've been talking. This is by far my longest video. I just guess needed someone or something to talk to. It's probably going to be like one person that watches this. Shout out to Marianne McGee. And that's why I did it. Because, you know, the anonymity of the internet. It's the vast ocean. You can hide in it. And hopefully I'll learn, you know. I imagine there's some things I'm wrong about. There's a lot of things I'm probably wrong about in this, so I'll figure it out.